Kindly respond. Okay, so today we'll start with a new chapter. Okay, the new chapter that we are going to start is cell cycle and cell division. Okay, we are going to see this chapter, new chapter, which will be called as cell cycle and cell division. So first, what we need to understand is in this chapter, we'll go for the introduction. Then we'll try to understand what is cell cycle. Okay. Then we will try to study about what is cell division. In cell division, we'll try to study about the types, mitosis, and then we will move on to meiosis. And then there are some significances. Okay. So this is what the chapter will be. So we'll try to study this thing. If we are completing these things, I think the chapter would be done. Okay. So it's a very small chapter. Relatively, it is small chapter. I can kind of finish it off in 5 days maximum, 5 hours. That is what will be the maximum time that is required for completing this chapter. Next weekend, you might have a test in this chapter. So it is better coming week you have test in cell, and the next weekend the chapter test would be cell cycle and cell division. So start reading as of now, as I'm teaching, it is a easy chapter. You will be able to understand it better. So you just have to follow it up right from the beginning. Okay. So now what we will do is we'll understand. We all know that cells come from where? What did Rudolf Virchow say? The test portion for this week is the cell full chapter. The test portion for this week is the cell chapter fully. So Rudolf Virchow said that cells will come from pre-existing cell. Okay. So now tell me, what is that statement that he made? Okay, just a second. There are some people who have started the videos. So all these people who started the videos, can you just switch it off? It is disturbing everyone. Whenever there is some kind of noise, your screen is being projected. So all people who are there using the video mode on, please switch it off. Good. Ominous cellula cellulae. Okay, so now let us try to go ahead with the thing. So what you need to know is you need to know that you have this ominous cellula cellulae, which means cells will come from pre-existing cells. So you have this particular cell. If one cell is going to divide into two, this will be the case. So let us say that this cell is going to further divide into two. Okay, so the time period from the birth till this division is what we call it as cell cycle. Okay, Right from the moment when this particular cell is born, this is the birth of the cell. From that time till it is going to divide further, the events which are happening in between is what we call it as cell cycle. So in this particular chapter, we are going to study about what are the things which will happen from this point to this point. Okay, the cell cycle, what is the thing that will happen? That is the first part that you will study. Then we will also understand how this, actually it is not till this, it is till this thing. We will also understand how this division happens. Okay, so what is this thing? So quickly let us write. It's a concept oriented chapter mostly. So quickly let us write. What is cell cycle? It is the time period that is between a cell birth and cell division. Okay, that is what we call it as cell cycle. So what is cell cycle? Cell cycle is the time period that is there between a cell birth and a cell division. Yeah, time period varies. Different cells will have different time. Okay, for some cells the cell cycle will be longer. For some cells the cell cycle will be smaller. Every cell will not have the same level of cell cycle. What I am trying to tell is the phases are all same, but the duration can be varied. Are we able to understand? Actually, the events which are happening in cell cycle is common, but when will that event happen and how long will it take place? All those things will vary between cell to cell. You cannot say that, generalize that like that way. So someone is trying to tell me for yeast it is 90 hours and for human beings it is like 24 hours. That is like kind of a very generalized statement. There are some cells in human beings which will have a cell cycle which will happen for a almost like say like 50 years also. Okay, some cell cycles will happen even for 50 years. Some cell cycles might happen for almost like say 20 years. Some cycles can happen at 12 years. I'm talking about years, not like hours alone. Okay, you will understand it gradually. If you're learning human reproduction, you will understand. Yeah, 24 hours is for cheek cell. Yeah, cheek cell you can say, or skin cells regenerating ability. Okay, so this is what is cell cycle. Cell cycle is the time period. So now let us try to study what are the things which will happen in the cell cycle. Okay, you can add this point. This time period varies from cell to cell. The stages in cell cycle are: the first one is interphase, the second one is M phase. The interphase is further divided into G0 phase, G1 phase, S phase, and G phase. Okay, quickly write this thing. I'll explain what these things are. Prophase, metaphase and all will not come, man. I'll tell. Avasaram. Okay, copied na. So just a second, wait. Hey, wait, man. I'll tell. Adukullara avasaram. It is G naught, G0. Children, wait. I understand. No, I mean you just copy it. I'm going to teach you. Okay, so let us say that this is the cell birth. Please draw this diagram also. Okay, so this is a cell cycle. If you are able to get it rightly in the center and like draw this as a radius and arc, it is still good. This is very crude I have drawn. It's still fine. It's like a normal pie, okay, pie chart kind of thing. Yeah, so children, so listen. So what happens is your cell is there. After the birth, immediately it is like kind of growing up. And then beyond a point, what is happening is it is starting to divide. Okay. So what is this interface? This interface is the phase before the division starts. As in right from the birth till what? Till the division. There is a time period. So that time period is called as what? That time period is what we call it as interface. So after some particular point of time, what will happen is the division happens. So the phase of division is called as the M phase. Okay. So what you are able to see here is this is like the interface is the time period right from the cell birth till what? Till the beginning of what? Cell division. What is M phase? M phase is the phase of division. Okay. You can write it here. What is interface? Interface is the time period from cell birth till the beginning of cell division. What is M phase? This is the time period when the actual cell division happens. Okay, you cannot call it as resting phase because the cell is not resting. Okay, resting phase is totally different. I'll try to tell what is resting phase. You cannot call the interface as resting phase because lots of activities happens in the interface. Okay, so we will be like trying to understand what are those activities. You cannot call the entire interface as resting phase. A part of cell cycle, a part of interface can be called as a resting phase. I will try to tell you. You can say that it is a preparatory phase. Yeah, you can say that it is the preparatory phase. So interface is a preparatory phase. You can say this word. Preparatory phase. So interface can be considered as preparatory phase. Why is it called as M phase? We'll try to understand that thing. Just a minute. Okay. There are like, it's not just growing. There are lots of activities which will happen in this interface. Wait a minute, you will understand it. So now let us move on without further ado. We can just start moving on. You have this thing where, so what is this G naught phase? Okay. So like, let me try to tell you some example. So as soon as your cell is born, the cell should be like kind of recovering first of all. It should grow up to the fullest size. Okay. So say for example, the cell will be like kind of growing up to the mature size. So that phase is called as G naught phase. G0 phase can be considered as a resting phase. Or it can be called as a transient phase. Okay. So transient phase means it is like kind of short-lived phase. Okay. So what is the thing? Children, listen, I am teaching. Okay. Just because you're sitting there and then reading some material and then like you're asking some questions, please don't start asking questions. I am teaching you. Please listen to me first of all. You can read after the class is over. Now don't try to ask questions now like is S phase, synthesis phase, is M phase, mitotic phase. Okay. Those kind of questions, please don't ask. First listen to me. This is all conceptual driven. You have to understand the concepts. Here, if you're in this chapter, even if you're not reading the theory, it is okay. If you understand this particular thing, no, if you're understanding the concepts here, you will be able to answer the question very easily in this chapter. Okay, this is not a theoretical chapter. This is a lot to do with problem solving. Lots of problems will come in these questions. Okay, which means you need to understand what happens exactly when. So please listen to me. So as soon as a cell is born, a cell will have to do what? A cell will have to grow. A fresh cell which is born is young. Okay, it will not have many organelles. Okay, so it has to grow. A newly born cell is like young, it will not have many organelles, so it has to grow. First of all, it has to stabilize the process. So that stability is like induced by this particular phase. The cell will not do anything as soon as it is coming to the birth. After it births, it will rest for some time. What will it do during this resting phase? It will try to develop into a full cell. So it matures basically. So that maturation process will happen in which phase? It will happen in the resting phase. Okay. And what will happen whenever it is mature and it is ready for the next round of division? That is when the actual cell cycle starts. Okay. Though it is there in the G0 phase or transient phase for some time, whenever it is ready for the division, cell division, that is when the main cycle starts, which is the G1 phase. So which means the G1 phase is when the exact cell cycle begins. In the G0 phase, what will happen is it will just be there. It will be metabolically active. In G0, what will happen? The cell is metabolically active. What is the meaning of metabolically active? Metabolism will happen. The cell grows. Okay. It prepares itself for what? Okay, it will not prepare exactly. Okay, it matures. Okay. So this is what will happen in G0 phase. The cell will be metabolically active. The cell will grow. The cell will mature. Okay. So when it is ready for the division, it proceeds to G1 phase. When it is ready, it will take a diversion and it will try to go to the G1 phase. But here I am trying to put two directions. There are two directions in which the arrow mark is pointed out. Some cells I'm trying to put it this way and I'm like keeping it away from the cell cycle. And some cells I'm trying to take it to the next level. Okay. Even while drawing here also, you see here, I have drawn it like this, where G0 is like separate and then G1 is separate. இப்போ இந்த இடத்துல இப்படி ஒரு டைவர்ஷன் எடுத்திருக்கேன். What is the meaning of it? Some cells will not come out of G0 stage. அப்படின்னா என்னன்னா அது G0 ஸ்டேஜ்லயே பர்மனண்டா பர்பச்சுவலா இருக்கும். பர்பச்சுவலானா லைஃப் லாங் இருக்கும். Which means they will not divide at all. Some cells will not go into the cell cycle at all. They will be continuing in the G0 phase. G0 phaseலயே வந்துட்டு இருக்கும். It is not that unicellularன்ட்டு கிடையாது. I am talking about your body itself. உங்க பாடியிலே எல்லா செல்ஸுமே டிவைட் ஆகாது. Only certain cells will divide. I mean like all the cells will divide, but some cells will not divide. எந்தெந்த செல்ஸ்லாம் டிவைட் ஆகாதோ அதெல்லாம் G0 phaseலயே அப்படியே வந்துட்டு கண்டினியூ ஆயிடும். They will never come into the cell cycle at all. Okay, இந்த G1 phase குள்ளார வரவே வராது. Say for example உங்களோட ஐல இருக்கக்கூடிய corneal cells, உங்க eyeball அந்த black colorல இருக்குல்ல, so that is a phase which will be like kind of so that is a phase when your eye cells will be there. உங்க eye size வந்துட்டு whenever you were born the same size is there till today. Your eye cellsல வந்துட்டு அந்த main part அந்த நடுவுல இருக்க அந்த கருவிழி part வந்துட்டு they were not like what, they will not grow at all, they will not divide at all. So அந்த செல்ஸ்லாம் வந்துட்டு they will be ever forever, it will be there in the G0 phase. You talk about the memory neurons in your body, not all kinds of neurons, but you talk only about the memory related neurons. Those memory related neurons will not divide. Why they will not divide abin keta? They will, if they are dividing, it means you are having memory loss. It is like daily coming and saying like, okay, this is your mother, this is your father. Someone has to introduce you, or your father or mother might not know. Okay, so basically if you are like kind of like having your memory cells are dividing on a day-to-day basis abdina, what will happen? You will have a problem. What kind of problem? Daily you have to learn ABCD because you don't remember anything at all, so it will not be stored in your memory. So there are some cells which will never divide in your body. Those cells will perpetually continue in G0 phase. What is the meaning of perpetual? Forever. Forever certain cells will get into G0 phase only. So those cells will not divide, but other cells what they will try to do is they will try to come into that case. Alzheimer's disease is a different case. Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative case. Your brain cells are getting degenerated. That is what is called as Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so some cells when they are ready to be there, it will try to move out of this G0 and it will go to the G1. Yeah, basically they will be like growing, it would have matured and they will stay put. They will be metabolically active. That's all. Okay. So now let us see, take this thing, take these concepts. How were those studies? Na, they were studied under microscope. In old age, people are undergoing that memory loss. So what will happen is they are losing their cells. The cells die. Okay, are you guys done? Okay. So there are certain cells which will not be there. So then if it is like kind of like getting into a cell division, it will go to the G1 phase. Okay. If you need to understand what is G1 phase, you need to understand what is S phase. Okay. So what is this S phase? Whenever a cell is going to divide into two parts. Okay, let us say that the cell is there. The cell is going to have information in the nucleus. So now the cell has to divide into two parts. It will be like kind of like having two cells. If it has to divide into two cells, the information in this particular cell should be present here also, here also. It is not like I'm having 46 chromosomes here means I'm not going to divide it as 23 and 23. This is not going to happen. But if it is 46 here, here also it should be 46. Here also it should be 46. It cannot just like that divide and give. So which means the DNA content has to multiply. Or it has to synthesize. So that synthesizing phase is what we call it as S phase. Okay. So basically DNA will multiply into two. Yes, DNA can be copied. That is what is happening. It is duplicated. So what will happen? 46, if it is there, it will multiply into 2 and then it will divide into 46 and 46. Okay, this is how it will happen. So which means what should happen before the cell division? What should happen before the cell division? The DNA should multiply. Okay, you use several words, but DNA can use the word multiply. You can say it is replicate, or you can use the word synthesize. All these things will happen. It will, you can either say that DNA is like multiplication, or it is replicating, or it is synthesizing. All these things will happen in which phase? It will happen in the S phase. Okay. So it is going to happen in the S phase. What is going to happen in S phase? In S phase, the DNA will multiply. Or it is synthesized. So if DNA has to synthesize, நான் சொல்றேன் இது எஸ் ஃபேஸ்ல என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு புரிஞ்சாதான் உங்களுக்கு G1ல என்ன நடக்கும்ன்றது புரியும். வெயிட் பண்ணுங்க, நான் சொன்னது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் உங்களுக்கு புரியவே இல்லைன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். நான் என்ன சொல்றேன்னா உங்களுக்கு G என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு புரியணும்னா உங்களுக்கு எஸ் ஃபேஸ்ல என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு தெரிஞ்சாதான் உங்களுக்கு G1ல நடக்கிறது புரியும். Okay, so only if you're understanding what is happening in S phase, you will understand what is happening in G1 phase. So I am trying to tell you what will happen in S phase. In S phase, what will happen? The DNA will multiply or synthesize. Okay. இப்போ இந்த சிந்தசிஸ்க்கு வந்துட்டு தேவையான விஷயங்கள் எல்லாமே உங்களுக்கு G1 ஃபேஸ்ல ப்ரொடியூஸ் ஆகும். So this G1 is indicative of gap 1. We call that as a gap 1 phase. What will happen in this gap 1 phase? In this gap 1 phase, whatever is required for S phase is produced. So ultimately, what is happening in gap 1? When the cell is ready, for division, it enters the G1 phase. Man, growth 1 phase I'm not using the word growth phase. You cannot call it as growth phase. Please use the word gap 1. The correct word is gap 1. That's all. When the cell is ready for division, it enters the G1 phase from G0 phase. Okay, this is first thing. In the G1 phase, in the gap 1 phase, the cell produces enzymes, proteins, and machineries that are required for the duplication of replication of DNA. It prepares for the S phase. Are you understanding? So this is what will happen in gap 1 phase. What is it trying to do? It is trying to produce enzymes, proteins, machineries, whatever is required. You need some kind of minerals and all those things. So all those things are produced in which phase? It is all produced in gap 1 phase. Are you guys done? Yeah, cells which stay in G0 phase will not multiply. That is what I am trying to tell. Cells that stay in G0 phase will not multiply. Only if it is coming to gap 1 and all, it will proceed in the cell cycle. The cells will be metabolically active in G0 phase. Yeah, Cells will be living, but it will not divide. That's all. So the next one is S phase or synthesis phase. This is the phase when the DNA content in the cell doubles. What? How is this possible, sir? Which one? DNA replication happens. The cell produces an extra copy of DNA and histone proteins that are required organizing gene. There are two things which will be produced. One is DNA is produced, and second one is histone proteins are produced. In which phase? S phase. So after the S phase, what will happen? The chromosomal number will double, or the DNA content will double. Okay, so this is what will happen in S phase. In S phase, the S stands for synthesis, correct? No, 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 no. The synthesis phase is only for DNA which is there in the chromosome or nucleus. Okay. Please understand that mitochondrial cells DNA or chromosomal, I mean like chloroplast cells DNA will multiply whenever they are dividing. Okay. They are all like kind of organelles which will have, they can divide on their own. Okay. Whenever they are, one cell is going to, one mitochondria is going to divide into two by fission, at that time they will divide. Okay. This is, we are talking only about nuclear DNA here. Okay, so this is the S phase. The next one is what we call it as gap 2 phase or G2 phase. Okay, what is that thing which is going to happen here? You need to understand. If you're talking about thing, this is the phase where actual division will happen. Okay, so you have this particular phase, this G2. What will happen? The cell will prepare itself for the division. So what will happen in this gap 2? There are some substances required for the production of, substances are to be produced for division, cell division. So the cell division requires certain enzymes, certain proteins, certain kind of machineries. All those things which are required for the cell division are produced in this G2 phase. Okay, so what is gap 2 phase? Gap 2 phase, it is the phase that follows S phase. In gap 2, the cell produces enzymes, proteins, and machineries that are required for the M phase, in which the cell division happens. Okay, so this is what will happen in G2 phase. Yeah, only substances required for S phase is produced in G1, correct? Whatever is required for the G2, M phase is produced in G2. And what is produced in S phase? In S phase, DNA and histones. Hey, what time is your English class, man? 12 o'clock only, no? Okay, so the last phase alone, you listen and go. M phase. It is the actual phase when the cell divides. Okay, M indicates mitotic or meiotic Okay, M indicates mitotic or meiotic phase. What is the meaning of mitotic phase or meiotic phase? There are two types of cell division. Okay, the cell division can either be mitosis or meiosis. The M here is indicating what? The M here is indicating, it is indicating either mitotic phase or meiotic phase. Okay, this is the phase where when the cell divides. Okay, so now you need to know something here. There is something called as a checkpoint. So after the G1 is over and before the S phase starts, there is something which is called as a checkpoint, because the cells should divide properly. It should be like kind of what it should be like multiplying in the without mistakes. Okay, once there is a mistake, what will happen? It cannot go back. So because of which it has to ensure that it is like kind of like completed all the production in G1, only then it can go to what? S. Otherwise what will happen is S phase will become a problematic phase. So the cell will have something called as a G1 checkpoint here. Similarly, the cell will have something called as a G2 checkpoint here. Okay, what is that G1? G1 and G2 checkpoint. G1 checkpoint and G2 checkpoints are checkpoints that will ensure that all the substances which are to be produced are produced. தேவையான எல்லா விஷயமும் ப்ரொடியூஸ் ஆயிருக்கா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு it will just try to check it. I'll tell about this checkpoint tomorrow. We can continue it tomorrow. So now we can show all the slides. First slide. Second slide. Third slide. Yeah, everyone is having English class. Fourth slide. Fifth slide. Sixth slide. No, not English class for you. Only for KNMS students, they have their English class. Seventh slide. Eighth slide. Ninth slide. 10th slide. Okay. Thank you, children. First slide. Either meiosis or mitosis will happen, not both. If the cell is going to undergo mitosis, it will be mitosis. If it is going to undergo meiosis, it will be meiosis. Okay, thank you. Ninth slide.